Welcome back. Now, the jury is out on whether the U.S. will renew the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act in September, while economies also grapple with President Trump's sweeping tariffs. And the big question is, as the world reconfigures, can Africa claim its economic power? This is a fundamental question that policymakers, business leaders and innovators will tackle at Standard Bank's second annual Business and Economic Forum, Africa Unlocked 2025. Andrew Robertson, head of Business Enablement and Operations at Standard Bank's Business and Commercial Banking Unit, joins us with more detail. Thank you so much for your time, Andrew. Now, the Africa Unlocked conference debuted last year. What meat are you putting on the bones this year to build on last year's agenda?
Thanks so much. Good to be back here. Very excited about this year's edition. Obviously, as you say, lots of moving parts in the world at the moment, and the conference is all about bringing together our business clients, entrepreneurs, and really key policymakers and leaders from around Africa. So it's very much a Pan-Africa opportunity to connect on new and different themes. And some of those themes will focus on trade, as you've highlighted already, and Africa's role in also participating meaningfully in specifically agriculture. We've got renewable energy themes, and also family-run businesses, how to grow and extend beyond an environment where businesses find themselves and take that leap into a future growth phase.
And I mean, you speak about lots of moving parts with the world's trade, economic and political linkages really disintegrating in front of our eyes. Is there opportunity then for Africa to rise out of the rubble and to lead in a new world order?
I think that's most certainly the case. I think that in the conference you'll see that we've brought together, as I said, some really good business owners and our client base, together with great business leaders from across the continent and internationally. And so this is Africa using our own resources, our human capital, sharing ideas, and really leaning into how we think differently and build a future from an African perspective. So I think the answer is absolutely yes, and that's really the intent next week, is to bring all of these leaders together, share ideas, and then form a clear approach and action to bring this to life going forward.
Do you think there's also an opportunity for Africa to kind of build new arteries for connection, maybe with some parts of the world where those connections weren't there, without necessarily losing the current connections that they have in the global landscape?
I think most certainly there is. There's some connections that we are familiar with already. If you look at some of the work and the trade routes between ourselves and China as an example, and having just returned from a visit to China, we've seen some really strong interest in Chinese entities looking to support Africa's industrialization growth. And so, from that perspective, we can amplify, I think, opportunity within the Africa-China trade corridor. Strong demand for mechanization and access to world-class technology, and we're seeing that, and it's starting to play out. But equally, China's looking for partners to supply world-class produce. Agriculture certainly well positioned. And then I think obviously from a AFCFTA or intra-Africa trade perspective, working deliberately to drive trade across Africa within our borders. I think we've got a really good opportunity and proposition. And as a bank, we're really well positioned, I think, in leveraging our footprints and our franchise across these markets.
It's also quite interesting that you mention agriculture as a growth engine, and this is the theme that I've been seeing yesterday and today. Actually, the Gauteng province is hosting its first agro-processing summit, and even there are players from China. So it's also going to be very interesting to see how the relationship between Africa and China evolves. Now, what position should South Africa take in continental influence? And does the GNU, the Government of National Unity, enable South Africa to be a unifying voice in the continent?
So, look, I do think that South Africa does play an important role in the continent, but I think equally, it's all of the countries have a growing and a strong voice. One of the themes that we have in the conference specifically is one that will focus on this topic around a year into the GNU. Our chief economist Gulam will be sharing some thoughts and some insights around that, and so I think we are going to delve quite deeply into that during the conference. So look out for that session.
And obviously, this engine of growth needs to be powered by money. So are Africa's capital markets well placed and positioned to drive this much needed acceleration in the continent's economic leadership?
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot to think about, and obviously some challenges related to capital at times, I guess. But from a bank perspective, we're certainly well positioned. Okay. And I think equally the presidency of the G20 and the B20 that rests with South Africa this year, again, that is one of the key topics that is being discussed and debated within that environment. So we do have themes around that will emerge during the conference. And so I think Africa is well placed, but we certainly know that there is a lot of work to be done in that environment.
Indeed. Well, looking forward to the outcomes of the conference. Thank you so much for your time, Andrew. That was Andrew Robertson, Head of Business Enablement and Operations at Standard Bank's Business and Commercial Banking Unit. On that note, from shifting power dynamics to digital disruption, business is essential to shaping Africa's future. Africa Unlocked 2025 returns to Cape Town next week, hosted by Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. And of course, join us for exclusive coverage as leading voices explore how African enterprise can drive real impact. That's from 10th to the 11th of July.